Right, so got a bit of a Retribution workshop here. Ignore the stuff in the background. This is me on one of my early kills on Velhari. This is for Mythic. Someone has asked me to have a look at their performance on Heroic Velhari. Sent in logs, which is fine. You can work with logs. Logs and video together would be ideal, but not everyone can do that. And I can get a lot of information from logs. So what I'm going to do is to have a look through these logs. I'm going to go through the process that I would go through. So, you know, it might not be as snappy as you're expecting. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but hopefully I can go through most of the main bits. I will say I would strongly suspect that you know, any problems won't just be related to you, but I will try and focus on what you could do better about it. But anyway, let's give it a go and see how we get on. Okay, so let's have a look at this now. There are a few things we can have a little look at to begin with. One thing I like to have a look at, first of all, is damage taken. There's a number of sources of unnecessary damage in this, and chief amongst it, sorry, let's click on abilities, is Aura of Oppression. You can see quite high up on that one. So there's a lot of movement going on, which is not necessarily movement that should be taking place. Now, it's not necessarily causing the wipes or anything like that, because you can see, obviously, on Heroic mode, this damage doesn't continue through the rest of the fight as it does on Mythic. And, you know, one person died in that phase and it wasn't you. So, but still, it's taking healing away from the healers and perhaps distracting the healers and maybe contributing to problems elsewhere. So always try and stay still. The only reason you really want to move in phase 1 is either if the boss or whatever you're targeting is suddenly dragged well away from you. Sometimes that can happen, it shouldn't happen. Or there's an annihilating strike either, well, in your direction but not on you, and you need to move out of the way for it. So I don't think all of these were annihilating strikes that you're moving out of the way of. Now, of course, you have to move a little bit on Infernal Tempest. I mean, that's another thing we could look at, damage. Infernal Tempest, the damage you take from that if you don't get that right is Searing Blaze. We can see you've taken a tick of that. It's not, I mean, that's not going to, in fact, 2 there. We've got 2 instances. Ideally, you wouldn't take any. The amount taken here is not horrendous, though. But the other thing is sometimes you get knocked up in the air when you take this as well. So it is best avoided for various reasons, both damage as well as avoiding damage taken. But I mean, that's not horrendous. That's not awful. But I will sort of show you later on how to deal with the Infernal Tempest so that you're not taking damage. Next thing to have a little look at. Let's have a look at buffs. So not everyone's buffs. Oh, okay. So what I noticed straight away here is we don't have Seal of the Righteous up at any time. There are times when there's the boss up as well as an add up. So you really want Seal of the Righteous up then. Seal of the Righteous is not a huge single target loss. In fact, on some fight it would be better to be up with Seal of the Righteous up all the fight than Seal of Truth upon all the fight, in fact, because Censure doesn't do very much damage. If I just show you here, it is almost your lowest damaging ability. And you've got this up all the time, bear in mind, because you're in Seal of Truth all the time. And yet it's doing next to nothing. You can understand Exorcism being quite low in damage because it's our lowest priority spell pretty much. You can understand Divine Storm being, because it's not a DPS increase on 2 target when you are not using Final Verdict. So these will just be empowered, I'm guessing. So, you know, take those 2 away and it is your lowest damaging ability because it's absolute cack. So Seal of the Righteous when there are 2 mobs up is what I'll say there. So go back to buffs. Another thing, let's have a look here. Seraphim, 45%. That looks like quite a big gap there. Let's have a look at this. So steady here. So it's finished here. There's going to be another 15 seconds before it's available again. So it's ready at, if this finished at 1 minute 54 seconds, and half a second, never mind the half a second, 1 minute 54, then at 2 minutes 9 it should have been available for use again. And you use it again at 2 minutes 22. I can't think of any extenuating circumstances there, because I mean that's a 13-second period when it was off cooldown and available to be used, and it wasn't being used. Now, one thing we can do in a situation like this is we can go to the replay. Now, as I say there, I mean, if there's a video in with this, then that's great as well. But, you know, Warcraft logs is good because you can actually look at a replay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to watch the replay. I'm going to sort of target you so I can see what you're targeting and what you use and all the rest of it. We'll just sort of play through the fight and we'll see what we can see. We can see everyone else spread out there. This is really useful, by the way, for viewing all sorts of things. I'm just going to wait for something interesting to happen. Oh, now, actually, this is interesting. Now, Annihilating Strike. This is something I'm going to look at, not necessarily for you, but just for general, because by all means, look at, when you're looking through logs, don't just look at your own performance, look at others. Not to have a go at people, but just to try and find improvements. So if I click on the boss, who are they targeting? They're targeting this priest here. So that priest over there. So really, there should be no one between the boss here. If I draw a line between them and this priest here, and what have we got in this line? We've got you again with the video. You don't have to step much out of the way. I can't see exactly where this arrow is. You might have stepped just enough out of the way. I don't know. I don't believe that this guy. Who is even that? Is that a tank? Why is the tank stood this way? That. Okay, I'm going to look at that in a minute. And then we've got this Paladin here. So let's just see if they get out of the way at the last second when this is cast. Doesn't look like it. In fact, it looks like there's even more people in the way now. So that's been cast there. Now I'm just going to have a quick look here. So that's at round about the 22-second mark. Now this doesn't line up exactly, but if I switch to this next tab here, and if I look up damage taken, Annihilating Strike. So let's click on some of the people I think were in the way. So we'll check on Danvar first. So sure enough, at that time, he's taking damage from Annihilating Strike when he wasn't targeted by it. So he got in the way. That's unnecessary damage there. Who else? The tank. I don't know what he was doing there. No, he didn't take damage from it. I'll not go on through everyone. I'll check you, though, because you've sent me the logs in. You didn't take damage at that time either, so you did get out of the way of it, so that's fine. I'm just going to click back on here. Wait for that to definitely finish. Right. Yes, that Death Knight is tanking the boss. Now, I'm not an expert on tanking, but I do know that whoever's tanking the boss will sort of be facing that way. So we've got a situation here. So the tank is here, which means the boss must be facing this way. You don't want anyone in front of the boss other than tanks. So we've got a rogue there, we've got a shaman, we've got a Death Knight. Even this, really, the boss wants to be tanked, so it's facing this wall back here. Or, you know, it needs to have its back to the raid. We only want the tank in front of it. There's certain abilities that get fired off that do a lot of damage, and you don't want the raid in the way. This is causing a lot of damage. This is probably draining your healer's mana, the way it's been tanked, which of course nothing to do with you, but this is worth raising. You do not want the boss at any time during the fight facing the raid. Now, this is the point. We've got the Ancient Harbinger up now because, you know, Tyrant Velhari has gone to 90%. This is the point at which you want to be in Seal of the Righteous, because that mob should be brought close to the boss. It is being. So that's fine. Who's it on? That's on Tartarus as well. Oh, they've done a tank swap there. Fine, that's fine. Okay, so they're close enough together. Seal of the Righteous, where are you? You're there. So the tank's here. So you actually should be now around the other side. The boss must be facing this way, which is actually okay. Facing that way, I mean, facing that way is better. Facing this way is okay. So you should be round the other side. Let's see if you move. And again, click play. Yeah, you're in front of the boss. Still, do not be in front of the boss. Now, if the tanks are going to suddenly swing the boss here, there, and everywhere, obviously it's difficult for you. But here, that tank is actually keeping that boss pretty static. and you... Why are you moving? Is this... Sorry, let me just go back. Is this Infernal Strike? It's Infernal Tempest. Sorry, behave yourself. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, what you want to do in Infernal Tempest, I'll show you a bit later the way I do it as well. Basically, Infernal Tempest will spawn, or the Searing Strike thing, will spawn on you. And it's a circular bit of fire. You'll know that. You've seen it. Doesn't do you any harm. Don't panic. It will pulse twice. Then on the third, second, then it does damage. So what you do is you just stand still. It pulses once. Stand still. Pulses twice. Then move. And you don't have to move far. You just have to move slightly out of it. And then it will go up, and there'll be another 2 pulses underneath your feet, and then just move back. So it's basically 1, 2, back, 3, 4, forward. It's just like doing a waltz. Okay? So let's carry on anyway. Let's see. So that's the Infernal Tempest, so you're moving around there. Bit more than you need to. Hence the high Aura of Oppression damage. And again, you've moved yourself back in front of the boss. The warrior is actually tanking the boss very nicely. The boss is sort of staying facing this end here, which is ideal. Let's just wait for something else. The other thing I'm just going to have a look at is the health of the Ancient Enforcer. You do want to sort of, at this point, be getting the boss down and the Ancient Enforcer down as well. Okay, it looks like it is. Looks like it is. So let's have a look. We really want a bit more damage on the Enforcer at this point, because when the boss transitions to the next phase, ideally we want this ad dead. So I'm just keeping an eye. Every 10% of the boss's health, something interesting happens. So almost Annihilating Strike. We're going to get one more Annihilating Strike in. Where's he going? He's all over the place. Now at this point, you're almost... Let's just... Oh, there's another Infernal Tempest. Well, we're not getting a break here, are we? How's this ad doing? No, it's getting there. It's getting there. I'm just trying to see who's tanking it now. So the Death Knight's got it on again. I don't know about this Death Knight tanky yours. Never mind. I'm not talking about him. Right. Oh, let's just go back there. There's another Annihilating Strike. There were probably several of them. I'm not hitting every single one. This time it's on the Rogue. Where's the Rogue? There he is. Now the Rogue needs to stand still at this point, because if he goes swinging himself here, there and everywhere, it will still follow them. So that the Rogue is going to take some damage off it. But everyone else that looks like they're in the way is going to take unnecessary damage. They shouldn't be there. Now, there's 2 ways of dealing on Heroic. On Mythic, I mean, I get in the mindset, I've done Mythic for so long now, that what you do is the person who gets it just stands stock still and everyone else moves out of the way. Now, the way we did it on Heroic when we were originally doing this is we did something slightly different, in that we had a position for the person who was going to get the aura to, if it was in melee, if it was in range is supposed to be spread out. I mean, these ranged are all over the place as well. They should be sort of spread out in a smiley face, because if there's an Annihilating Strike, say, targets this priest, that hunter's going to cop for it as well unless they move, or this shaman, and this monk's going to cop for it unless they move. There's so many people all behind you. As ranged, they should all be in a crescent shape. No range should be in front of another ranged. So if you're as a range, you see someone in front of you that's another ranged, should move. This hunter could move to here. But anyway, in melee, another way of doing it, as I say, is you can have a position, let's say mark here, or here, wherever the boss isn't going to face. And if you get the Annihilating Strike, you move to it, so everyone else can stay where they are. But here we've got a situation where that rogue's going to stay there, because I don't know how you're dealing with it. I don't have that information. I just have these logs. There's other people in there. Now, this is going to hurt some people, I would guess. You don't have to move far from it. It has to be said. You do not have to move far. So I'm not going to say, even though it looks like there's people in the way, that there definitely were. So again, this is where we go around about the 1 minute 43 mark. Annihilating strike. Yeah, you're taking it there. You're right in the way. So you've taken a mark. You needed to be away. It puts a yellow arrow on the ground as well, so just watch out for that. The other thing to bear in mind is, once the Annihilating Strike has hit, however many it hits, each of those people leaves a circular fire thing on the ground, which will also then go off as another extra little strike. So you need to move out of the way of that as well. So even if you are targeted with it, obviously you've got to take it. You sort of sidestep from that fire thing as well. It's all about reducing the amount of damage you take. If you reduce the amount of damage you take, you do two things. One, you reduce the amount of panic the healers are in. Panicking healers is not a good thing. Secondly, you're not wasting a lot of their healing, because that can do a couple of things as well. One, it's draining their mana. Two, it's taking their eye off damage that people are taking quite reasonably. Okay. So anyway, I'm just going to click back on the boss. We're just going to scoot up to 70%. Now, transition in here. Right, okay, so now we're getting the situation where we can get the font. At this point, of course, people with font want to be stacked on each other. So you need like stacking points. I'm guessing you've got this, where all the people with font need to be stacked on each other, because the font damage doesn't do damage to you if you have font, but it does damage to everyone else. So you want to be away from other people. You don't have to be miles away, but away from other people, but on top of the other people with font. Okay. Now let's have a look. Can I see two distinct groups of people here? Can I? Where's? It might not show up. This is a difficult one to see. Let me just have a look here. I'm looking for font of corruption, aren't I? When does that start to happen? Around about 2 minutes 30. Right, so not just yet. Aha, here we go. So at this point, it looks like this is what you are doing. So at this point, okay, so we've got a couple of people with font. We've got a rogue there. We've got a monk there. Can't see anyone else. They should be moving. Yeah, it looks like they are moving. That's fine. That's okay. That's been dealt with. Are they still close enough to the boss to attack the boss? Looks like they are. Right, okay. The old Ancient Harbinger's up. Now, at this point, you want to be full on the boss. Again, you can still be in Seal of the Righteous, no problem at all. But you do want to be focusing on the boss. I'm just going to click on the boss again until... Now, at this point, everyone should be on the boss. If you can do incidental cleave to the Harbinger, all to the better. But you do want to be on the boss. And let's just see. That one's on the boss. That's fine. Boss, yes. Yes. Yes, good. Yep. Yep. Okay, so that looks like that's... Oh, what are they doing? Hang on, let's just see. Because Boomkins are a funny bunny, aren't they? They get a bit of single target DPS by putting things on another target. But they're not switching back to the boss. So this guy, I don't know what... This guy isn't contributing at all. At this point, you see the problem is your health is going down and down. And now everyone's health, you know, your maximum health is being reduced. And it won't stop happening until you've got the boss down to like... I forget the percentage now. Is it about 4? Oh, dear. Is it about... You forget about percentage after a while because you just sort of get used to the timings. I think it's 40% you've got to get this boss down to. He's still on the ad. It's definitely Moonkin, yeah. These are healers. They can do what they like. So it looks like... Oh... Your priest's been a bit... Oh, no, he was probably just dotting it up. That's fine. That's what I thought the Boomkin might be doing. But he's staying on the boss. Really not helping. But anyway... Oh, no, I don't want that. I want the boss. Right, so... At 40%, then you're okay. And then you do want to finish off the ad. But not until 40%. See, all this time, look... maximum health, what the hell is that? The maximum health is just going down all the time. And it will not stop until you have got this boss into the next phase. And of course, people are dying here, probably because they're taking damage, and it might be unnecessary damage, but it's because their maximum health pool doesn't allow them the margin for error to let the healers heal them up again after they've taken it. Only at this point, are you then okay? And that ad's dead. That ad, oh my god, that ad died before the boss got to 40%. You need to get the boss down to 40%. As soon as this Harbinger turns up, you need to get that boss down to 40% quickly. You need to interrupt the ad, of course, when it does its heal. I haven't actually checked if it got a heal off, actually, I have to say. But I'll not just do that yet. But you need to get this boss down. At this point, of course, you know it's going to be a wipe because there's 5 people dead. But what then should happen is, let's get the boss down a bit more. You've got the despoiled ground. You need to move as one, really. You've got the edicts, which need taken out of the way. Warlock demon gates are good for that, but you haven't got a warlock. So they just need to get the hell out of the way quickly. On heroic, it's probably not going to kill you straight away, taking a tick from the edict, but it's not ideal. Sorry, let's just get to the point at which the ad would spawn. And then when this ad spawns, it needs to bring into the boss, and then you need to burn this ad down. At this point, the boss will be... oh, it's just doing a... now, Gavel. Now, this I will look at you here. Because when Gavel comes in, you want to be using Divine Protection. Now, let me just have a little look here. Let's get rid of that. Again, all about the damage that you're not taking. So, sorry, what was the time? I don't think the times line up exactly, I have to say. On this 5:17, it reckons about there. It could well be that you are using Divine Protection. I just can't see it on you here. I would expect to see it. Let's just see. Gavel's going off now. Just check that you are using it. I cannot see it on your buffs. I can see that your weapon enchant has gone off, and I can see your Glyph of Templar's Verdict there. But I can't. I would expect to see Divine Protection, and there is a gap for it, so it's not just it's gone off the screen. Gavel in this phase is the time to use Divine Protection. So just make sure you do that. And of course, make sure your back's against the wall so you don't go flying. It looks like you were okay on that bit at least. And yeah, at this point, obviously, you're just going to all start dying off now. There's just not enough things. But let us just see what the nature of the deaths were. So when did everyone start dying really quickly? There was a death there. That was Edict. What probably happened here is... Oh no, I could check that. When people die to Edict in like the first phase, what usually is the person who gets Edict doesn't share it amongst other people. You sort of die if you take it all in once. I'm trying to think how much damage it actually does on heroic, but I think you need a fairly hefty cooldown to immune it. So you usually want to share it with everyone else, or at least stand on the boss you're sharing it with melee, because it shares the damage out. It's like a meteor type effect. Or they didn't share it with enough people. Usually a death by edict of condemnation means it hasn't been shared out amongst enough people. Anyway, mind you, it's a death over 5.1 seconds. That'll probably... maybe a healer could have done a bit more than that. Were they shielded at the time? I don't know. But anyway, you could always look, and we're looking at mainly for you. Now, in terms of the raid, load of people died all at once. Gavel, during this time at Gavel, no one's taking, like... Edict of condemnation, so it's not someone with edict who's staying in the group and doing a load of damage to people. So Gavel's doing that. Obviously tank dies, tank, you know, at that point then yeah, it's gone on the hunter. The hunter's got aggro and got battered, and And then the Death Knight, as Purgatory is procced. And then once that tank down, once your second tanks die, that's it. You're all just going to take turns getting aggro and getting walloped. So this is tank death. Now, it's quite likely that this tank here, without me looking in detail, well, I'll look in detail. I'm going to guess they didn't have a defensive up. They didn't have shield barrier up by the looks of it. They need... If they don't have defensives of their own to use at the time, they need to be asking for defensive. So like from you, for example, Hand of Sacrifice. But don't just randomly cast Hand of Sacrifice. You must tell the tank... Let me just see. Hold on. So Hand of Sacrifice wasn't used during the fight. Now that suggests to me the tanks need to ask for it. Tanks these days, one of the skills of tanks is knowing when they won't have cooldowns of their own to take damage, predictable damage, and they have to ask it from someone else. So it could be a Hand of Sacrifice from a Paladin. Make sure you've got the glyph. It could be a Pain Suppression. You know, it could be a Vigilance from a DPS warrior. They need to be asking for these sorts of things. So it looks like that's what's killed that tank. And of course, in the last phase, tanks are very, very susceptible because they've got lower health. And especially if you're taking a long time, because the knock-on effect here is you took so long to kill the boss. In this sort of phase, everyone should have been on the boss. And if no one should have been... I mean... Whereabouts were we? Hold on. Here we go. This ad here... which is dying, should not have been attacked. In fact, do you know what? I'm just going to have a look on here, right? Because I'm going to show you something here. If I just put myself in. Last time I killed it, I was on the mail shot. Do you know, I've been hopping around all over the place. Tyrant Velhari. So my last kill... September the 10th. Now, damage done. Harbinger's up. Right, so at this point, there might be a bit of incident. So at this point, the Harbinger's up. Now, look at this. The shape of this. It's sort of up like that and it's down like that. And then this is the point at which we're all attacking it. Some people are attacking it. This is just random cleave. At this point, we should be on the boss. Okay? We're on the boss. But let's just look at that shape of that graph again. All right, double peak there. If I do the same thing on yours, I'm going to guess I'm not going to see that double peak. I'm not. Look, it's, you know, there's constant damage going on it, and there shouldn't be. You know, this is just like an initial burst. People are putting the dots on and shit like that, and then they're switching to the boss because the boss needs bursting down. And if I click on replay on this one, this is mythic. Okay, fair dues. There's no point in me showing you a heroic one because when you're killing it on mythic, any sort of heroic fight, you're just going to, you're not going to be taking it terribly seriously. Now, hold on. Right, so it's spawned here at this point. Now, I'm just going to pause it there. And then let's compare the boss's health. 51. Remember, we need to get down to 40%. Now, as we're getting close to 40%, this Harbinger, yeah, it's losing some health. There's cleave damage going on, but it's still quite healthy. The key point is that the boss... In fact, I'm going to keep it on the Harbinger because you can see the boss's health up here. At 40%, the boss is phasing. We're now safe to switch to that other ad, at which point we do that really quickly and break it down. Can't even find it in there. So then we switch to it and break it down very, very quickly. But people needed to make sure that they're focusing the boss, essentially. Now, on yours, as I say, I'm on the Harbinger. It's down here. It's a 19%, and Velhari is nowhere near 40% yet. 2 people have died. This Harbinger's about to die here. Velhari is not yet at 40%. 4% still to go. Your health is going down all the time. This here aura is affected. It means you can't be healed up above a certain amount. On Mythic, I mean, okay, this is heroic. You're not ready for Mythic yet. Fine. But when you get to Mythic, this will kill you every time. But I think it already is. Because until this phase ends, you don't get your health back. Until she goes below 40%. Right, so this it's now gone. People can now be healed back up. But you've already lost so many people. And it's because the boss is not being burst down at that point. So I'm just going to check something else as well. So when did the Harbinger come up? Right, it's about... There we go. I can't actually... Oh, when did you use... Heroism? So you're using heroism at the right time. At the time at which the Harbinger appears and you need to burst down the boss. But not everyone is. I did note, as I say, everyone seems to be targeting the boss. Not necessarily focusing on single target though, because I don't believe that just that Moonkin on their own has burst down that ad. Okay, they have burst down that ad and they have completely ignored the boss. I mean, if we look here, this is yours, isn't it? Yeah. Right, this period here, because the boss at this point, this died, we've already noted, the boss was still above 40%. So if I click on the boss here, he's done next to nothing. I'd be average. You're not the raid leader, so it's nothing to do with you. But that's a big fail right there. The boss needs bursting. You've actually done well. You're on the boss here. And some people are doing quite well. These are failing. These people... Alright, that's a tank. Leave them alone. But these people are not doing what they should do. They should be saving their cooldowns for that point. They should absolutely be saving their cooldowns. And... You've got your Avenging Wrath going off there. You've got Seraphim ready to go there, so that's fine. That's all good. Needs to be burst down quickly. So that's what I would say. Those are the sort of learning points I can take from these logs. There might be a few others if you got to like much lower percentage wipes, if we see what I mean. But then, to be honest, if you sort all these things out, the things I've mentioned, then you would be doing your job a lot better. And if you were to pass on some information to some of the other people in the raid, the whole raid would do a lot better. Because in actual fact, it's certainly not you letting down the raid as a whole. As I say, there are things like, you know, trying to avoid taking too much Aura of Oppression damage and things like that. But by and large, you're doing okay. You're certainly hitting the right targets at the right time. Just don't move so much. And don't stand in front of the boss. And then that will be good. But yeah, there's quite a lot of things you raiders in general is getting wrong. And you won't kill the boss. You won't kill the boss until some of these things are sorted out. So for Infernal Tempest, remember, you want to be at the boss, and then you wait for 2 pulses, step back, 2 pulses, step back forward. So it's literally like 1, 2, back, 3, 4, forward. And if we look at it again, if you start from just on the edge of the boss, when you do take your step back, you can actually still carry on hitting the boss. But sometimes if there's a lot of melee around there and it's very difficult to do that safely, it's no big deal if you have to take DPS because it's only off for like a second or two. So not really a big deal. The important thing is that we're not taking the damage from it and we're not running around like a blue arse fly taking loads of Aura of Oppression. Okay, so just remember that. 1, 2, back, 3, 4, back in. Okay, so hopefully you found that useful. Let me know if there are any other questions. Some of the things, just bear in mind, is because I've done Mythic now, or certainly more pulls on Mythic, if not kills, than Heroic. I might get a little bit more fixated on some of the abilities that maybe don't take so much. So I'll try and do a bit of a summary. You do need to try and avoid taking lots of Aura of Oppression damage. That's definitely true. The damage you were taking during Infernal Tempest was not excessive on that particular try. Of course, what I was showing there was one good try. There were other ones as well. I didn't spend a lot of time looking through all of your pulls. I picked the best pull of the night on the logs you showed me. But at the same time, if you can do this 1, 2 back, 3, 4 back in, then that is preferable, because it means you don't take any damage. You're not getting knocked up in the air or anything like that. Other things to bear in mind, Seraphim, do try and make sure you're not having an excessive gap. Sometimes you do delay it, sure. You delay it for a few seconds if an important event is coming up. Let's say it's just before Heroism's going to get fired off and the ring's going to get fired off, and you want to just delay it a little bit, but that delay of 13 seconds there is a bit much. I really... Something's gone a bit wrong with the old timings if you needed to delay it for that long. Seal of the Righteous, make sure you've got that on when there's ads up. You're really not losing very much single target damage. I mean, sure, during the part of the fight when the Harbinger's up and you're bursting down the boss, I do switch to Seal of Truth for that myself. But it wouldn't actually be a big deal if you sort of forgot. But certainly when you're actually wanting to cleave onto the ads, use Seal of the Righteous, because... And I notice you've got the Fell Burn trinket, so it's definitely worth doing. That trinket makes it very worth doing. Other things, make sure you use Divine Protection at key points when you know there's going to be damage taken. Like here, for example, we've got Infernal Tempest at the same time as an Edict. Classic time to use Divine Protection. I don't here because I'm not actually worried about the amount of damage from it. But if you are taking damage there, but certainly at the end when you got Gavel, that's absolutely, you must use Divine Protection then. It's not on a long cooldown, so you do get time. There's plenty of times when you can use it as well. Don't stand in front of the boss. That's quite crucial. Hopefully your tanks will oblige by tanking it predictably, but you do not want to stand in front of the boss. It doesn't help the tanks, and it certainly doesn't help you. Other than that, as I say, you're not actually doing badly out of your raid group. You're doing reasonably well. A lot of the issues that are stopping you killing this are either with the way your raid's doing things, or on an individual basis that people are not following the tactics. Because I don't know what your tactics are. I don't know what your raid leader's telling you to do or anything like that. All I can do is go by the logs and go by my understanding of the fight, bearing in mind I don't really think in terms of heroics at the moment. I did catch myself when I was sort of going through your logs thinking, actually that's not as big a deal on heroic, to be fair. Although, you know, the better you do anything, the more likely you are to kill the boss. But anyway, as I say, let me know how it goes. See if you get any joy from that. But it might well be that you sort of have to, on your guild forum or something, suggest a few other things as well. And do try and get into the habit of looking through logs. I would always say this. In the first instance, look at your own performance. You're not doing it to look at anyone else's performance. But if you do see something that could be improved on, as long as it's in the spirit of constructive advice, then you could always bring that up as well. Okay? And as I say, if anyone else wants me to do this sort of thing with them, quite happy to do it. Just beware that it might be something that you can't do a lot about yourself. It is a team game after all. Until then, see you later.